lecture hall. The Galactic Academy was alive with noise. Students from dozens of alien worlds filled the great hall, their voices blending into a strange mix of clicks, growls, and musical tones. It was not an ordinary day. Today, the most respected xenobiology professor of the Academy was going to teach about the galaxy's most feared planet, Earth. They called it a Class 0 death world, a place where the environment itself fought against life. Some students whispered that even the air there could kill you. Others swore they had seen images of storms that could tear apart entire cities. The tension was real, and every alien in the room was ready to hear about the terrors of the blue planet. The professor arrived, his long insect-like legs clicking against the floor. His antennae twitched as he scanned the audience. "Welcome, young minds," he said, his voice deep and slow. "Today, you will learn the most important lesson for any traveler, how to survive on Earth." His eyes moved over the rows of alien faces, never stopping for long, or so it seemed, because in the front row, there was someone who did not belong. A figure sat quietly, wearing a simple hooded jacket, no scales, no fur, no extra limbs, just two hands folded calmly on the desk. At first, the professor did not pay much attention. After all, the Academy sometimes received strange visitors from far-off colonies. But the stranger's eyes, they were different, sharp, steady, and watching every move with quiet amusement. The professor began his lecture. He projected a giant image of Earth into the air. "This world," he said, "is the most dangerous habitable planet known to the Galactic Council." He spoke of deserts that could cook flesh, mountains taller than clouds, and oceans deeper than any alien trench. He told them about creatures with teeth as long as an arm and plants that could poison you with just a tea. Ouch! The alien students gasped, some covering their eyes. It was the kind of fear they had been taught since childhood. Earth was not a place for the weak, and in the galaxy's eyes, every species was weak compared to Earth. But in the front row, the hooded figure leaned back slightly. A faint smile appeared on his face. He tapped his fingers on the desk as if keeping rhythm to a private song. One student, a small reptilian with bright green eyes, noticed him. She tilted her head and whispered to her neighbor, "Does he find this funny?" Her friend glanced at the man and frowned. "No one laughs about Earth." The professor explained the first survival tip. "Rule 1, never approach Earth's wildlife," he said firmly. "Their strength, speed, and unpredictability make them the deadliest in the known galaxy." A hologram showed a human-sized feline with sharp claws. Even small ones can end your life in seconds. Some students shivered, others muttered in disbelief. But the man in the front row tilted his head, his lips curling in quiet amusement. The second rule appeared on the holographic screen. "Rule 2, avoid open water," the professor continued. "The oceans are home to predators with jaws powerful enough to crush steel." A massive image of a great white shark filled the room. Students recoiled, some covering their faces. The hooded man, however, leaned forward as if looking at an old friend. The professor continued. He described hurricanes so massive they could be seen from space. He spoke of lightning that could melt metal in seconds. "Even the ground can betray you," he said, showing images of earthquakes and volcanoes. He warned that the weather could change from burning heat to freezing cold in a single day. "And yet," the professor said with pride, "we have studied its dangers well enough to survive for short periods if we follow the rules." The alien students leaned forward, eager to learn these rules, but the hooded figure in the front row did not take notes. He simply watched, his smile growing wider with each dramatic warning. By now, several students had noticed his strange behavior. Whispers spread through the hall. "Who is he? Why isn't he afraid? Maybe he doesn't understand the danger." But the truth was far more shocking. The man understood the danger better than anyone in the room because he had lived it. The professor moved to his final warning for the day's opening lesson. "Rule 3, do not stay on Earth longer than necessary." He explained how the human immune system was adapted to fight countless diseases that would kill most alien species instantly. "You will not last," the professor said gravely. "No alien ever has." The hooded man's smile returned. He rested his chin on his hand. If only they knew. If only they understood that right now, sitting in the front row of their precious lecture, was living proof that their rules were wrong. The professor paused for questions. Dozens of alien hands shot up, eager to ask about survival suits, food sources, and safe zones on Earth. But the hooded man did not raise his hand. He was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to speak. Waiting for the moment the room's fear would turn into shock. Outside the Great Hall's windows, a storm rolled over the Academy's distant horizon. Lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, and in that instant the man's smile deepened. It was almost time. The warnings. The storm outside grew stronger, wind howling against the tall crystal windows of the Galactic Academy. Inside, the alien students leaned closer to their desks, eager for the next part of the lecture. The insectoid professor raised one long finger toward the holographic display. Now, he said, we will speak about the greatest enemy on Earth, its climate. The lights dimmed, and a vast projection filled the air. A swirling hurricane spun above oceans the color of deep sapphire. The image zoomed closer, showing waves rising as tall as buildings. Some students gasped, others hissed or clicked in fear. This, the professor explained, is called a hurricane. A storm so powerful it can lift entire ships from the water and tear apart stone buildings. He turned to face the students, his antennae twitching. No alien vessel smaller than a warship has ever survived being caught inside one. In the front row, the hooded man shifted slightly. His fingers tapped against his knee, slow and steady. It was not the rhythm of fear. It was the rhythm of memory. He had been inside one of those storms. He had felt the ocean try to swallow him whole, and he had walked away. The professor moved the display to show a desert. Endless golden sand burned under the white sun. Earth's deserts can reach temperatures high enough to boil blood, he said, his voice low and dramatic. The alien students shivered, their scales or fur bristling. Without protection, you would be dead in minutes. A tall avian student raised her wing and asked, but surely no intelligent life could live in such a place? The professor's eyes darkened. You are wrong. Humans live there. The hooded man's mouth twitched upward. He remembered the desert heat pressing against his skin, the sand biting into his boots. He had not just survived, he had thrived. His eyes flickered toward the professor, as if silently challenging every word. The hologram changed again, this time to a frozen wasteland. Mountains of ice rose under a sky filled with swirling snow. Earth's poles are wastelands of ice and wind, the professor said. The cold will freeze flesh in seconds, and storms there can last for weeks. A young reptilian student whispered, impossible. No creature could survive that. The professor nodded gravely. And yet, humans have walked there too. At this, a wave of murmurs spread through the hall. Several students turned toward the front row, eyes narrow. Rowing at the hooded man, they had begun to notice his calm, no flinching, no fear, only the quiet confidence of someone who knew. The professor ignored the whispers and moved on. He displayed a picture of a massive forest, thick with dark green leaves. This, he said, is a jungle, one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. He described plants that could kill with a single touch, insects carrying deadly diseases, and predators that hunted from the shadows. The air itself here can sicken you, he warned. No alien who has entered has ever left alive. The hooded man finally let out a soft laugh, barely audible but sharp enough to draw the attention of the nearest students. A horned alien leaned toward him, glaring. What is so amusing? The man did not look up. Just remembering some old friends, he said quietly. The horned alien frowned, confused, but before he could press for more, the professor's voice rose. And now, he announced, the most unpredictable danger of all, Earth's sky. The hologram showed dark clouds flashing with light. Bolts of lightning crashed down, striking the ground with explosive force. This is lightning, the professor said. It can melt metal, ignite forests, and kill in an instant. He looked over the hall with satisfaction. There is no defense against it, only avoidance. The hooded man's eyes glinted at the memory of standing in the open as the sky split apart with thunder. He knew the smell of rain before a strike. He knew how the air felt just before the world turned white. By now, the murmurs had grown louder. Several alien students were openly staring at the hooded figure, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. The small reptilian from earlier whispered to her neighbor, I think he's been there. Her friend scoffed. No one comes back from Earth. The professor ended his warning with a stern voice. If you ever find yourself on Earth, you must remember, do not underestimate the planet. He let the words hang in the air. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, and if you meet a human, rue. This time the hooded man did not hide his smile. It was not the smile of arrogance. It was the smile of someone holding a truth no one else dared to believe. The truth that humans did not just survive Earth, they were shaped by it, and no alien in that room was ready for what that meant. As the lecture moved toward the first question session, a strange tension filled the air. The alien students were no longer focused only on the holograms. They were watching him, waiting for him to speak, and he was waiting too, because the moment was coming, the moment when silence would break, and the galaxy's greatest fear would sit up, pull back his hood, and tell them the truth. The challenge, the hall had gone quiet. The professor's last words still echoed through the air. And if you meet a human, run. The storm outside cracked with thunder, as if agreeing with him. Dozens of alien eyes glanced toward the hooded figure in the front row. No one spoke, no one moved. It was as if they could sense that something was wrong. Something didn't fit. A young avian student finally broke the silence, her feathers ruffling nervously. Professor, has anyone here ever actually met a human? The insectoid professor let out a dry clicking sound. Of course not, he replied. No human would dare come here, and no alien would survive long enough on their world to meet one. The class nodded, relieved by the answer, all except the hooded man. He shifted in his seat. The chair creaked under his weight. Slowly, he rose to his feet, every head turned toward him. Even the professor froze, his antennae curling in suspicion. The man's voice was calm, deep, and steady. I have, he said. The room went still. A few students blinked in confusion, thinking they had misheard him. What do you mean? A scaled alien in the back asked, his tone sharp. The man's lips curved into a faint smile. I mean, I've met a human. Gasps filled the air. A horned alien scoffed. That's impossible. But before the man could answer, the avian student tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. Wait, are you saying? The man reached up and pulled back his hood. The gasps turned into stunned silence. Under the dim light, they saw the smooth skin, the forward-facing eyes, the short dark hair, features alien to everyone here. A few students instinctively leaned back, their bodies tense. The professor's voice was lower now, as if he had just realized he was standing in front of the very thing he had warned them about. You're human, the man said, finishing the sentence for him. No one breathed. The word itself seemed heavier than the storm outside. The students stared at him as if the air around him had changed. Some looked afraid, others curious, a few even angry, but all of them were listening. The professor tried to regain control of the room. This is highly irregular, he said, his voice shaking slightly. You cannot simply appear here unannounced. The human interrupted him. I didn't appear unannounced, he said. I walked in through the front door just like any of you. The boldness in his tone made several students shift uncomfortably. It wasn't just confidence. It was something else, something forged in places far harsher than anything they had known. A reptilian student with scarred scales narrowed his eyes. If you are truly human, then prove it, he challenged. The human turned to face him fully. How? He asked simply. The reptilian bared his teeth. Tell us something no one else could know about your death world. The human took a slow step forward. His boots made a dull thud on the polished floor. You've been told about Earth's deserts, storms, and jungles, he said, his gaze sweeping the room. But what you haven't been told is what it feels like. He walked toward the center of the hall. When the wind in the desert is so hot it feels like it's slicing your skin, he said softly. We keep walking. When the ocean throws walls of water higher than buildings, we don't run, we push forward. When the cold bites into our bones, we dig deeper, we burn hotter, we refuse to stop. His words were not loud, but they carried. Each syllable seemed to press against the walls of the hall. Some students leaned forward unconsciously, drawn in. The storm outside boomed again, lightning flashing against the glass. The professor tried to speak, but his voice caught. The human's presence filled the space in a way that made lectures and holograms seem small. You've been told to run if you meet a human, the man said. That's good advice. If you are my enemy, the reptilian student crossed his arms, trying to hide his unease. So you're saying all those rules we just learned are wrong? The human shook his head. No, he said. I'm saying your rules aren't enough. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Even the hum of the hologram seemed distant. The human turned and began walking back to his seat. He had said enough to unsettle them, but there was more, much more. The professor stared at him with a mixture of fear and fascination. His mind raced with questions, but his pride would not let him ask. Not yet. The other students whispered among themselves, glancing at the human again and again. They had come here to learn how to survive Earth. Instead, they had just learned that Earth itself had come to them. And for the first time in years, the professor felt something he never expected in his own classroom. He felt like the student. Earth stories. The human sat back down slowly. His eyes still shone with quiet fire. The hall was silent except for the distant rumble of thunder outside. He looked at the alien students and spoke. You want to know what Earth is really like? He paused, then smiled. Let me tell you stories, not just facts, he began. In the deserts, the sun burns like a gun, and fireball hanging too close to your skin. The sand is not soft. It's sharp and dry and moves like a sea of knives. You can hear the wind scream like a wild beast all night long. But humans live there. They build homes that blend into the sand. They find water hidden deep beneath the earth. They wear cloth that lets the wind cool their bodies. They do not just survive the desert, they master it. A murmur ran through the students. Some looked amazed, others skeptical. One young amphibian student blinked slowly. How can life live in such heat? She asked softly. The human answered, because life does not give up, he continued. In the oceans, the waves are monsters, taller than trees. They roar and crash like thunder. Many creatures live in the dark deep below, some so strange and fierce they would scare even you. Humans dive into these waters wearing little more than cloth and air. They swim with sharks, ride the currents, and hunt fish that are faster and stronger than anything in your waters. They learn the ocean's moods, the secrets of tides and storms. They respect the sea but never fear it. The professor's antennae twitched. He had studied oceans for years, but he had never thought of living like that. The students exchanged quiet looks. Could a human really be so brave? The human's voice softened. In the jungles, the air is thick with smells, some sweet, some deadly. The plants and insects can kill in many ways, but humans use their minds, their tools. They build shelters from leaves and wood. They learn which fruits are safe to eat and which to avoid. They listen to the sounds of animals, and they move silently to avoid danger. He smiled again. Jungle life is hard, but it is alive, full of color and sound and power. It teaches patience and sharp senses. It makes humans strong in body and mind. A tall avian student tilted her head. I never thought life could survive there, she admitted. The human nodded. Survival means knowing your enemy, but also knowing yourself. He spoke next of the frozen poles, where ice covers the land and the wind cuts like knives, where the sun disappears for months and cold can freeze breath in the air. Humans live there too. They wear thick furs and build fires that burn through the long nights. They hunt animals tougher than any predator you know. They live by their strength and by their will. The room was still. The students looked at one another with new respect. Some no longer saw Earth as just a death world. They saw it as a test, a challenge, and humans as something more. The human's voice dropped lower. But survival is not just about fighting nature, it is about change. Earth forces us to change every day. When storms come, we change our plans. When food is scarce, we find new ways to eat. When danger appears, we find new ways to live. The professor watched closely. The human was not just telling stories, he was teaching something deeper. The alien students listened, their fear turning into awe. Some whispered, maybe humans are not weak. Maybe Earth makes them strong. The human smiled faintly. Yes, he said. Earth does not break us, it makes us. Outside, the storm raged on. Lightning flashed, lighting the human's calm face. He looked toward the windows, then back at the room. And that, he said softly, is why you must never underestimate Earth or the humans who live on it. The proof. The room was still filled with quiet wonder. The human stories painted pictures brighter than any hologram. But some doubts remained. The insectoid professor tapped his fingers nervously. Words alone cannot prove your claims, he said. Show us proof. The human nodded slowly. From his pocket, he took out a small device, no bigger than a fist. He pressed a button, and the air in front of them filled with glowing images, real videos from Earth. The students leaned closer, eyes wide. Some even gasped. The first video showed a man standing in the middle of a desert. Heat waves shimmered around him. Sand whipped violently. The man did not flinch. He shielded his eyes and kept walking, unafraid of the burning sun. Next came footage of a violent hurricane. Buildings tossed like toys. Winds howled. The camera shook as the man waded through water rising to his waist. He fought the storm with steady steps, moving forward. The storm seemed to rage against him, but he did not turn back. A third video showed frozen tundra, snow falling thick and fast. The man's breath steamed in the cold air. He pulled his jacket tight and trudged forward over ice. Behind him, the sky was a swirl of dark clouds and flashing lightning. Still, he walked on, steady and strong. The last video was the most striking. It showed a deep jungle, thick vines, strange animals, and the noise of unseen creatures filled the sound. The man moved silently, carefully. He avoided poisonous plants and snakes. He built a fire that glowed warm and bright in the dark night. He slept calmly, surrounded by danger. The alien students whispered among themselves. Some looked shocked, others looked doubtful. The professor's antennae drooped slightly. He stared at the images as if seeing Earth for the first time. Is this possible? A young reptilian asked. How can one man survive all this? The human looked at the questioner and smiled. Because I am not just one man, he said. I am one of many. He turned off the device and the room grew quiet again. You have learned your lessons well, the human said. But you have only seen half the story. You have been taught to fear Earth, but you do not understand it. And you do not understand humans. The horned alien, who had doubted the most, clenched his fists. If your people are so strong, why do they need to learn survival from us? The human's eyes flashed. Because strength is not just muscle or speed, he said. Strength is knowing when to fight, when to wait, when to change. Humans are masters of adaptation. We change faster than storms, faster than predators. We are not perfect, but we survive because we never stop trying. The professor cleared his throat and spoke carefully. If what you say is true, he said, then the galaxy must rethink its views. But how can we believe you? The human stood tall. Believe what you will, he said calmly. But soon, you will have no choice but to accept the truth. The hall was heavy with silence. Outside, the storm began to calm, but the tension inside had only grown. The alien students looked at the human not as a visitor or a curiosity, but as a force they could no longer ignore. The truth. The hall was thick with tension. The alien student stared at the human like he carried the weight of worlds. The insectoid professor's antenna drooped low. He whispered, "What is your true purpose here?" The human took a slow breath. His eyes darkened with serious fire. "I am not here just to tell stories," he said. "I am here to prepare you." The students exchanged nervous glances. "Prepare us for what?" asked a young amphibian, voice trembling. The human's voice dropped lower, colder. "The galaxy is changing. Planets will no longer be safe havens. Every world will face the harshness of Earth's climate. Storms like hurricanes will rage on distant moons. Deserts will spread across once green lands. Oceans will rise and drown cities, and the cold will bite deeper than ever before." A reptilian student gasped, "Are you saying our homes will become like Earth?" The human nodded. "Yes," he said, "and you will need to survive, just like we do." The professor's voice cracked. "But why come to us?" The human looked around. "Because you need to learn from the best survivors," he said. "Not just to survive, but to adapt, to fight back, to change your fate." The students were silent. Some seemed frightened, others eager. A horned alien whispered, "Then what happens if we fail?" The human's eyes were hard. "Then the galaxy falls," he said. "Civilizations will crumble under storms and heat. Resources will dry up. Wars will erupt over food and water. And only those who change will live." He took a step forward. His voice rang clear. "This is why I am here, an envoy from Earth. To teach you not just how to survive Earth's dangers, but how to face the future. The hall was quiet except for the soft sound of thunder. The alien students felt the truth sink deep. The human was not a stranger. He was a messenger of survival, a warning wrapped in flesh. The insectoid professor bowed his head slightly. "Then we have much to learn," he said humbly, "and much to prepare for." The human nodded. "And I will help you," he promised. "But only if you are ready to listen, to change, and to fight." Outside, the storm broke and rain began to fall. Inside the hall, a new understanding was born. The galaxy's greatest fear was no longer just Earth, it was what Earth represented: change, challenge, and survival. The final lesson. The hall was heavy with silence. The human stood in the center, calm and steady. He looked at the faces of the alien students, some fearful, some curious, some still doubtful. He spoke slowly, his voice carrying weight. "Survival is not just about strength or speed," he said. "It is about will, determination, and never giving up. You will face storms that tear worlds apart, enemies that strike without warning, challenges that seem impossible. But those who survive are not always the strongest. They are the ones who keep moving forward, even when all hope seems lost." The alien students listened. Some nodded slowly, others stared as if seeing a new path for the first time. The human took a deep breath. "I challenge any of you," he said quietly, "to come with me to Earth for 1 month, to live in its deserts, jungles, and frozen poles, to face its storms and learn what survival truly means." The room was still. No one spoke. The challenge hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Then, a small voice broke. "Okay, the silence." A young reptilian student raised her hand. "I will go," she said, her voice steady, but filled with fear and excitement. Others looked at her, surprised. Slowly, more hands went up, one by one. Aliens volunteered, drawn by the promise of truth and strength. The human smiled faintly. "This is the first step," he said. "Earth is not just a death world, it is a teacher, and humans are its students." The professor stood and bowed his head. "We have much to learn from you," he said to the human, "and from Earth." The storm outside had passed. Sunlight spilled through the windows, lighting the faces of those who were ready to change. The human turned to leave, but before he walked out, he looked back once more. "Remember," he said softly, "survival is not about the world around you. It is about the strength inside you." With that, he stepped through the door, leaving behind a room full of aliens forever changed. Aliens who would no longer see Earth as a threat, but as a challenge, and humans as the greatest survivors of all.